Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Diana Sanchez, and I am with the TCU Alumni Association. I am here with my colleague Terrence Hood from the Career Center. I'm so excited to have you all join us. We're going to give a couple minutes to get logged in, for everyone to get logged in, before we start with our special guest, Hallie Crawford, who will talk to us about how to make a career change in 2024.
Awesome. I need a purple wall. I'm going to work on that for next time, Terrence. What I'm loving is when people have these really cool, virtual backgrounds, and it's like a fake office. And I'm like, that's where I want to be. They're so cool.
Yeah, I have all wall, no pictures for now. Just get some pictures on my wall. A little more decoration.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Get like what is it? Those triangle flags. What are those called? Forget.
Oh, pennants?
Yes, exactly. You need like a bunch of those.
Ah,
We'll give you some unwanted design tips, Terrence.
I'll take them all. I'm fashion design impaired, so I'll take anything I can get.
Yeah, I'm not good at it either.
Okay, well, again, I'm Diana Sanchez. I work at the TCU Alumni Association, and I'll allow my colleague Terrence Hood to introduce himself before we turn it over to Hallie. Terrence?
Hello, everyone. I'm Terrence Hood, and I work in the TCU Career Center, and I'm the alumni career consultant. So I help all TCU alumni with their job search, career change, LinkedIn, resume development. So you have lifetime access to the Career Center at no cost. So you can always come back home to TCU if you need help with anything career related. So thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to turn it back over to Hallie.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the introduction and thrilled to be here with you all today. I almost said good morning. It's been one of those days today. And luckily, I find doing these webinars really energizing. So I'm excited to be here with you all. And we're going to be talking about how to make a career change in 2024. And it still kind of freaks me out. It's like we're in a space odyssey with these higher numbers here. So just by way of brief introduction, if you have not joined me for one of our webinars for TCU, I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. My company is based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we have coaches in different parts of the country. And I've been coaching and training since 2002. So there's a lot more gray hair going on for me underneath. Luckily, it's underneath. And the the advice that we're going to give you all today is advice that we give to all of our clients. And we pride ourselves on being really down to earth, giving you tangible, practical advice today. And I welcome questions along the way, as well as we are going to have a Q&A portion at the end too. And the advice that we're going to give you today is advice that we give to all of our clients. So that you know, my undergrad degree is from Vanderbilt University, and I have a master's degree from the University of Illinois, and I was certified as a career coach just about 20 years ago. I love what I do. So let's dive in. I'm really excited to talk with you about this topic today. So the first thing that I want to kind of just introduce as an idea, if you will, is there are three main components to changing careers. You need to be really clear on each of these pieces in order to make your transition successful or as successful as possible. Now, career transition, it can take a little bit of time. So I need you to be patient and be realistic about things. But if you can get really clear as possible on who you are, where you're going and what your goal is, what's important to you in terms of changing careers and the direction that you want to head, as well as making a really clear plan of action for making this happen, you're going to be successful with it. Okay, so let's just talk next about on this next slide about our agenda for today. I'll give you kind of a roadmap for where we're going and what we're doing. First, we're going to talk about how to define your direction. And this is kind of part of the who you are and where you're going piece combined. We've got a career model that we use with our clients and they love it. We'll show it to you today so that you can start to figure out, okay, I want to make a career change. How do I know if I'm on the right track and making sure I'm choosing the right types of jobs? Second, we're going to talk about conducting informational interviews and why we feel like whether they're formal informational interviews and meetings or just more casual conversations with people, that you're talking with as many people as possible, not just to help you clarify your direction and see what those jobs are really like, but also this helps you expand your network, which is going to help with your job search as well. We'll talk too about developing your brand and your materials, because obviously that's a critically important piece. And then drafting your transition plan. As I said a moment ago, please feel free to put questions either in the Q&A box or the chat. I have both of those open, and I will pause along the way if we've got kind of a critical mass of questions and we see some questions coming through. We'll also have some time at the end for Q&A as well. You will receive a copy of the recording from today. If you would like a copy of our slides, and I'll put this in the chat right now just in case, you can feel free to email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com, and we will get those slides over to you. And I apologize, guys, I've got allergies, so my nose is driving me crazy. This is what we're going to be doing today and going through. And like I said, also, if you will answer as many questions as possible, and if you do have questions that come up later on, please feel free to email us those. I'd be happy to answer later on, because sometimes I think of questions later too. I totally get it. All right, let's talk first about our first step, and this is defining your direction. So the deal here is that too many people are not loving what they do and enjoy it, and we totally get it. This is why we're here, to help you switch into something that's going to be a better fit for you. And if we could do our first poll here, Diana, that'd be great. We're curious how many people out there are wanting to change careers for a better fit, or in some cases, understandably, people want to change careers so that they can move up. And in that case, it may be a little bit less about changing careers and a little bit more about, I need to move into a different organization because there's a ceiling here and there's nowhere to go, for example. So we'll see what's out there and kind of what our split is. And as you're completing this questionnaire or the poll, I want you to think too about trying to be as clear as you possibly can and narrow in the jobs that you're wanting to apply to. Oh, Diana, it looks like maybe it's the wrong poll. The poll that we've got is elevator pitch. So maybe if you could pull up the other one. We'll do it in a moment. Making a switch number one, we've got the first one. Okay, cool. So we'll get the poll fixed. But one of the things I wanted to say while we're thinking about this is, while we want you to be as narrow as you possibly can and have like one, maybe two possible career directions you might pursue, it's okay when you're thinking about this to have maybe two ideas, or like a plan A and a plan B. Because in some cases for people, they want to have a backup option in case plan A isn't going to be maybe as realistic right now. Maybe you need to like take a step or have a stepping stone or a bridge job in between where you are now and where you want to be. So when I'm talking about defining your direction, we do want you to be as clear as possible and have like one possible job title or choice that you want to make, but it's okay if you have like a backup plan just in case as well. That is totally fine. And we actually recommend that to our clients a lot of the time because we want them to be open to different options. So, excuse me, the first poll came up and then it went away again. I'm not sure if you can pull it back up, Diana, but it's totally fine. Let's just keep going. If you get to it, Diana, great. Don't worry about it otherwise. Oh, no, yay. Okay, it's already done. Awesome. Thank you. So the majority of people are saying better fit. That's what we usually find for people. But those of you out there, the 17% that are saying for moving up, the advice we're going to give you today is still the same advice. Okay, so it goes kind of across the board. And the other, I would love for you all to put in the chat what your other answer is, because I'm really curious about what the other people want to be doing in terms of changing careers. So please feel free to put that in the chat box. That would be fantastic to know. So know that, again, across the board, the advice that we're going to be giving you can be relevant for all of the different situations. And I want to just see here. Okay, put in the chat if you share with us what your others are, and I'll read those as they come through. Okay, so one of the first things that we would actually recommend when you're either defining your direction from scratch, or if you're narrowing down your ideas or evaluating different opportunities, we would actually have you start with identifying and understanding first what would be the most rewarding and fulfilling thing for you to do next. And in order to do that and define fulfillment, we like to suggest to people that they identify what their career values are. Now, the reason why we recommend this and why we think this is important is number one, we find that when people define what their values are and what would be really rewarding for them, is they come up with and they brainstorm a lot more career ideas than they would have otherwise than just saying, okay, I'm good at this and it'll make enough money or I'll make enough money. Okay, good. Here's my list. You'll think outside the box more. You'll also brainstorm different ideas that would actually get you closer to something that would be rewarding for you. So, what we like for people to do is really get creative, think outside the box at the beginning, and do some expansive thinking related to your values. And then you can start to narrow down your ideas based on practical considerations. But you'll have more ideas to choose from in the first place, and it'll help you get closer to something that you would really enjoy versus if you did it the other way around. Okay. So, the ways that we can start to define what our values are, and I'll give you a couple of things here, and then I want to read what's in the chat, which is great, is to define success for you. So, one way to define or start to define what might be a good fit for you job wise, but also what your values are, is to journal about for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be that long. How you define success. What does success mean to you at this stage in your career, your professional life, et cetera, et cetera? What's really important to you? Journal about it tonight for 5 minutes before you go to bed. And then tomorrow, take a look at it and notice what themes you're seeing based on what you're saying there. Is it a lot about creativity, for example? Is it a lot about, working for a good boss or whatever it is? This can help you start to define what's really important to you. A second way to define your career values is to do what we call a peak experience exercise. So, a peak experience is to think about and write about a moment in time or a period of time in your life when you felt like on top of the world. Things were rocking and rolling. It was just a really peak moment in your life. And technically, we want people to think about a personal peak experience because if you do that versus a professional one, you're going to get closer to what's truly meaningful to you as a person versus writing down things that you feel like you should write down. And if you write about that peak experience for 5 or 10 minutes and share it with someone and think about for yourself what was cool about that experience for you. It's a little bit less about the details, but why was it a peak experience for you? You can start to pull out what some of your values are. And then finally, another way, and there are lots of different ways to define your values, but another way that we like is to think about the things that you can't live without, things that are just really important to you in your life. And this can give you some clues to your possible values. I'll give you a quick example. If we have two people who a trip out west was their peak experience, let's say, and one person, when they talk about that trip, they're really talking about the people they were with, the experiences they had, the connection that they had with the other people, how they learned and grew, or something like that. That's going to tell you something about their values. They're about relationship building, maybe leading teams, those types of things. Versus another person may talk about the same trip out west, but they are talking about, or if they're talking about the logistics, the planning, how they need to get there, how much time to spend at each place, they're more of like an operations type of person, right? So what's cool about these peak experience exercises is even if you have the same one, the way or the reasons why it's a peak experience for you can tell you a lot about what's really important to you in your life, but also therefore in your career. And you want to translate those over as much as you can into your career path. Because if you're doing something that honors your values as a person as much as possible, And if the work environment and the mission, let's say, of the organization is aligned with those things too, you're going to feel better. It's going to be a good fit for you. Okay, really quickly, let me look at the chat here. So one person is saying considering moving towards self-employment, and that's what they're trying to figure out or what they want to be doing. Great, thanks for that. Another person says coming back into the workforce after a break to raise family, but not sure if demanding full-time job, how to kind of balance those things. A stay-at-home parent again, and nonprofit, 6 years out of college, switching to corporate, but not sure which area. Thank you for that background. That's so incredibly helpful. Let's think about your values. And by the way, I'll move to this next slide here, but when you think about your values, one of the values could be for the people that have been a stay-at-home parent, family is one of those values. So that doesn't mean that I want to work with my family per se, but what does that value mean for you? It could look like it's work-life balance, or I want to work solely remotely or in a hybrid model, or maybe I'm looking for jobs that are just part-time or something like that, okay? So as part of defining your direction and your values, the other thing I want you to think about that can help you with this is to dig underneath your passions, your interests, and hobbies. And the reason why there's a mermaid on this screen, I use this example a lot just because it makes perfect sense and I like it. I grew up in Florida. I went to Weeki Wachee all the time with my family, and I thought being a mermaid would be the coolest thing to grow up doing. That was my childhood dream, right? And when I was starting to think about my career path later on, while being a mermaid wasn't the most practical thing for me to do for a lot of different reasons, there were actually clues to some of my values in that childhood dream. Number one, doing this, being a mermaid, seemed a little bit risky, right? They can't breathe underwater. They've got the air hose. Okay, fine. But I actually have a value of risk. And that's one of the reasons why I am okay with and actually love being a business owner, where I can try new things and play around with stuff. And a second value I have is educating people, but entertaining them a little bit at the same time. And to me, that's why being a mermaid was cool. You were teaching people about things, but it was beautiful and entertaining. When I'm preparing for presentations like this and webinars, I love messing around with my slides. That's like kind of a creative thing for me. So even if your hobbies, passions, interests, the things that you do outside of work are not practical career ideas for you, there are clues to some of the components that you may want to have in your next career path, like creativity, like education, like entertaining, or it could be something like creating experiences for people. So this is why, even though some people also will say, I want my hobby to stay a hobby because if I work in it, it's going to take the fun out of it, there's still some possible clues to elements that you may want to have in a new career path, okay? So when we're thinking about the right path, the other things that I would like you to consider, and really carefully and in depth, please, are the elements that are listed on this next slide here of our ideal career model. So basically, early on in my coaching, when I started this 25 plus years ago, I was like, okay, there's some great books out there, and there's assessments that are helpful, like StrengthsFinder, Myers-Briggs, and there's books like What Color is Your Parachute and all of that. And those are incredibly helpful, and they can be. But personally, me, I'm not very patient. And I wanted something that I could just look at and that would tell me what are the things that I need to consider in order to figure this out, like something really straightforward and easy to kind of digest pretty quickly. So I created this ideal career model so that people could start to, or have a framework to structure their thinking and brainstorming about their ideal career path. So we've talked so far today about the blue piece. That's the fulfillment piece. This is where you want to identify your values, the things that give you satisfaction or a sense of achievement at work that make you feel good and kind of lit up inside or excited. And if it's not at your current job, which may be why you're here, at previous jobs or volunteer work that you've done, anything is fair game here. We want you then to next think about your tasks in your previous jobs and at your current job that you have enjoyed the most, because this can give you clues to kind of the primary role or responsibility that you may want to have in your new career path, but also some of those other ancillary tasks too. And I'll use me as a quick example with kind of a slight shift here or add on advice to it. So I actually had a job before coaching in marketing and communications. Those are things that I'm good enough to be dangerous at and enjoy a little bit, right? So I thought, oh, okay, so this is a career path I should pursue. Well, I pursued it, and it turned out that that should not be the main thing I do all day, every day. It's fun for me to do in bits and pieces. So you need to also think about your career almost as like a pie. You want to think first with your values and fulfillment. The main piece of your pie is going to be your main role. Like, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a data analyst, I'm an event planner. And this enjoyment piece can give you other ideas about some of the other things you may want to do as part of that job. But you need to be clear about what the big piece of the pie is versus the smaller pieces, because I didn't get enough fulfillment and reward out of that marketing and communications role that I had. But I can do what I do coaching wise all day, every day, and not get sick of it. And then I can add in this marketing communications kind of as part of it. That's what that piece is about. We want you then, please, to think about your strengths and what your top 5 strengths are. We love the Strengths Finder assessment. That's just one of many that are awesome out there. So interview other people about your strengths so that you can get a sense of those strengths that you may be forgetting about, or you just assume everyone else is good at because it comes so naturally to you. Now, one thing about these assessments that I did want to point out, and this is part of why I created the model, is those assessments that are out there, whether they're testing for your strengths or your interests or your personality type, they can be so helpful. They're accurate and they give you information in a short period of time. But too many people come to us and they say, well, I took an assessment and it told me I should be, like a circus clown or something else that I'm not interested in. Remember that when you take an assessment, it's not giving you the complete picture. It's not sharing with you all of these pieces. So it's one piece to the puzzle. Use it, but look at the rest of our model to cover your bases, to come up with other ideas and or narrow down those ideas. Because there were several things on my list when I took an assessment in high school, but those things were not things that were going to be the right work environment for me, that were going to be fulfilling enough and rewarding for me. So those things are not things that I pursued in the long run. Okay. So that's the strengths. We want you to look also at education and experience, your past education, and how might you want to use your education from TCU or any other classes you've taken, if applicable. Part of why I talk about this one is because when I was thinking about my career path, I had kind of forgotten about some of my classes at Vanderbilt because it was a long time ago for me. But when I thought about it, I was like, oh, well, I really liked psychology. I liked education and interpersonal communications. Those were my favorite classes. It gave me clues to what I might want to do in the long run. So think about that. And when you're starting to look at these pieces here, strengths, education, and experience, this is also starting to be where you may brainstorm ideas as well, but it's also going to help you narrow down your ideas based on practical considerations. What are you good at that's going to make your career paths viable? Where do you have the past experience or education that you can be qualified for these things? Now, you can add to your repertoire, obviously, but you want to consider these things for additional ideas as a possibility. See if anything comes up from your past experience that you loved or coursework that you loved. But also, you can use these pieces to narrow down and say, this path is realistic for me. This one, not so much. I need to make some adjustments. I'll give you a quick example. We had one client who was into health and wellness, and that was like a passion for her. But at the time, she was in sales for, I think, office furniture, completely different. One of her career ideas was dietitian. She had all these other ones. Okay, great. When she looked into being a dietitian, though, she realized she'd have to go back to school, which she wasn't interested in doing at the time. And also, she wouldn't make as much money. So for her, she narrowed it down and adjusted and said, I would like to be in sales for corporate wellness programs. So like a consulting firm that would help companies save on their insurance costs, by helping them develop wellness programs for their employees. So she was able to kind of touch that values and that fulfillment, but make the money that she wanted. Okay. And the last three pieces, last but absolutely not least, are thinking about your personality type. This impacts the role that you should be in based on whether you're introverted, extroverted, big picture, detail oriented. It also impacts the right work environment for you and the people and the team that's going to be good for you to be working around. Okay. So you can't change your personality type. You are who you are, and we don't want you to try to do so. So this one is really important and can be a make or break for your satisfaction, because you really need to think about your personality type and those elements there. Finally, we want you to look at work environment. We've had too many people come to us and say, oh, I need to go be a chef or something completely different than what they're doing, and realize when they work through things with us that it's really more about the work environment. They could do and should be doing the same thing, just at another place. Okay. So with work environment, that can be a make or break. This is about the mission of the organization. This is about the culture, the location, all of this other really important stuff. And then finally, compensation is absolutely very, very important. But remember what we were saying, these are the pieces that can help you narrow down your big bucket list of ideas, which will be so helpful for you to figure things out based on practical considerations. But you've started to kind of really think outside the box. And thank you for it's the thing there. I'm not as detail oriented. It looks like we need to fix the spelling of one of our prepositions down there. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So use our model, and let me say these two things and then we'll get to the next slide. Use our model to help you brainstorm ideas, or if you feel like I already have some ideas, I'm probably on the right track with one of them, it can help you narrow down the right one or identify the right place to be pursuing that role. Okay. So it serves a lot of different purposes, but please make sure that you're checking all of the boxes, because all of them are critically important and really can mean the difference between being in a place that's great for you versus being in a place that doesn't work so much. Okay. So once we have started to narrow down our direction, or at the very least, we've brainstormed some ideas, our second step to making this change is to go out there in the world, so to speak, and do some research about what these career paths are like. And so think of the career model as the internal self-reflective work. We do the internal work, so we're kind of getting our ducks in a row at least a little bit. And then we go out there and say, okay, what jobs are out there that align with these things that I'm thinking about? I would recommend moving into the networking piece of things after you kind of know enough to be dangerous, after you have maybe 2 or 3 paths, but not more than that. And you know enough about these that when you're talking with people in informational interviews, you sound intelligent and articulate. You're not totally starting from scratch. And ideally, you're not kind of all over the place and you've got 10 different ideas you're considering. So the reason why we like this networking thing, and I said it a little bit earlier too, is it can help you narrow down your ideas, and it can help you also at the same time expand your network. Now, I know that this is not always people's favorite thing to do. So we're going to talk about informational interviews for the next several slides here. And I will admit too, I'm actually more introverted than extroverted. I'm 60% introvert and 40% extrovert. And so for me, putting myself out there, networking, doing informational interviews, it's not always my favorite thing to do either. But once you get started conducting 1 or 2 and get the ball rolling, you'll get more comfortable with things and with this over time. And just know that the people that we work with who are more seasoned in their career, maybe they're more senior level in their organization or whatever, I just see them do this automatically. Like I see them pick up the phone and call Susan and, chat with her for a few minutes and say, hey, can I connect with you? Like it's second nature for them. Because they know that this is how it works and they've gotten to the point where they're comfortable with it. So we want you to move in this direction. And if there are people out there that are already really good at this, kudos to you. It's fantastic. What we're talking about, if you look at this next slide, an informational interview is like a quick meeting with someone. It could be in person, it could be over the phone, it could be video chat, whatever makes sense for your situation and theirs. But there are three criteria of people that you want to be looking for. Number one, it could be in an industry that you're interested in. Number two, it could be a person who works at a role that you're interested in. And obviously, you're not looking to take their job, but you're wanting to learn what is it really like day to day for them. Or it could be at an organization that you're interested in. So you can narrow things down based on the model and say, what's the work environment here? And what are the strengths for these types of jobs, et cetera. Okay. What we find is because people tend to not want to do these, which I get, it is an underutilized tool. And if we could do our next poll here, Dinah, that'd be fantastic. Please know if you've done a lot of these and rock at it, that's awesome. Keep doing it. And remember, you can use it for these different purposes. There's nothing like talking to someone. It's like getting the information from the horse's mouth, what it's really like to work there, et cetera. And if you're not as into this and haven't used it as much, it's totally okay. You're not alone. We want you to try to practice with a couple people that, they're warm leads, people you already know, for example, friends or family or second connections. And once you start to get the ball rolling with this, here's what we find is when people start to put themselves out there more as part of this process of making a change, they get energized about it. They feel more confident because the people that they end up talking to who say yes to them, they're supportive. They give them good advice and they, let them know like they're not alone and there's a world out there and, like things can happen. And so it really does help boost your energy in a lot of different things too, to not just sit at your computer and think about this by yourself all day, but start to try to put yourself out there a little bit more. It does help a lot. So we'll take a look at our poll results once we get those posted. And we've got 59% are saying no, but 41% are saying yes. I have found, excuse me, everybody, these are great numbers because I found over the course of like even the last year and kind of post COVID that more and more people are getting the hang of this, which is fantastic. And so for those of you who haven't, like I said, start with people that makes it a little bit easier for you. Now, when you're doing this, if we take a look at the next slide, for those of you who have not done this, check your assumptions. They're not just for young people. If you feel like you're a little bit more introverted and this is a little bit harder for you, there's a great book. If you look on the right-hand side of this slide called The Introvert Advantage, I read this a long time ago because I'm more introverted. I find this book to be so helpful, not just for career stuff, but personal things as well. And if you've got that assumption of, well, I don't want to ask for help or look like I don't know what I'm doing or whatever it is, just throw that out. We had one client who is very senior level VP at a large construction firm. And she did an informational interview with someone who was at the same level at Kimberly-Clark. And they had a whole hour-long conversation. And at the end, the woman said, more people should do this kind of stuff. Good for you and kudos to you. So great book there for those introverts out there. Push yourself to start working on these and get the ball rolling. And by the way, this is a great way, and I'm not paid to say this, I say this to all of our clients, that this is a great place to leverage your TCU alumni network through LinkedIn and the other resources they have, because those are warm leads, and those people are going to be more likely to get back to you and give you some of their time, okay? And just talking off slide here for just a moment, I know that some people are not going to get back to you. Some people will say no, some people will ignore you. I totally get that. This is not some magic wand here, but it's kind of like sales. If you're going to get a 10 or 20% return rate, you need to put yourself out there that much more to multiple people, because we're not looking for you to conduct 50 informational interviews. That's not necessary. We're looking for at the start, like a handful of people that you can chat with that will kind of get the ball rolling for you and maybe make connections to other people too. If we look at the slide, this is why they're important. Even with technology, people finding you on LinkedIn and all these other cool things that go on, with job searching these days, people still find jobs through who they know. The hidden job market is those unadvertised positions through headhunters, recruiters, and networking. We had a client who was in New Jersey. He was talking with a colleague who worked in North Carolina, I think it was, at a like in a similar industry. And that person in North Carolina was telling him, yeah, there may be a job opening here soon. There's someone that I've heard and I know, I don't know how they knew exactly, but that they were wanting to lay off, unfortunately, and they needed to find someone a little bit more qualified. So you can find jobs this way as well. The more people that are kind of looking out for you, you can hear things through the grapevine. So informational interviews can help you narrow down your ideas and ask good questions about if this career path is the right fit for you based on all of the different components of the model. It can also help you determine if it's realistic for you, the skills required, the experience they're going to want, etc. And what I like for people to say is you're not asking them for a job, obviously. You're asking them for advice about how can I put my best foot forward in my search? Do you have any top tips? Have you worked with any recruiters that you liked before? Et cetera, et cetera. It's about getting advice from these people. And from every single person, you'll get a little bit of a nugget and you can start to narrow down your questions over time. We want you to start with people you know, and we want you to be specific and prepared with 5 to 7 questions that you want to ask them so that you're ready to go. Let them know these are the questions that you want to ask in advance, because then they know you're not going to talk their ear off. You're going to be mindful of their time. And also, they can prepare for the informational interview too. I love it when people do that with me, because then I can think about their questions and I know I'm really using that time wisely to help them. You want to be professional. Pretend it's an interview. This is a great way to kind of practice your interview skills. And at the end, we always want you to follow up. You send them a handwritten thank you note if possible. And if you can't get their mailing address for their company, at least send them an email follow-up, okay? And these are the things that we want you to work through. We'll go through these briefly because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A at the end of today. But these are the 5 steps that you can work through in order to conduct these effectively. And you'll notice you need to prepare in advance, okay? So with your connections, there's a list here of great possible things. Like I would literally, in addition to looking at your alumni association, and Diana put the address, the URL in the chat. So take a look at that, please. I literally want you to go through your phone and see who you know that you may have forgotten about that could be a good connection for you, okay? Then we want you to think about, as you're starting to set these up, we need you to have your brand and your materials ready to go, your resume up to date, your LinkedIn up to date, and everything else. So let's get to our 3rd step. So as part of, and I'll say this again in just a few minutes too, but as part of your follow-up with them, and actually let me just go back to, I want to go back to this one thing really quick. Okay, my computer is so slow. Bear with me one second. Okay, as part of the follow-up, I think it was this previous slide. When we're talking about follow-up, in addition to thanking them, et cetera, one of the things we highly recommend is to have an Excel spreadsheet or something like that where you're keeping track of your networking connections, your applications, and everything else. Because if someone makes an introduction for you or suggests reaching out to this person or says, great, let's follow up in a month or whatever it is, we want you to remember that and stay organized with things. So as part of the follow-up after thanking them and following up on any action items that you all talked about, make sure that you put, like, this is what we talked about, this is the follow-up, or what I need to do or don't need to do if they're not the type of person that you need to follow up with. You keep track of that in your spreadsheet. People always ask us about the networking and they're like, well, how often should I stay in touch with people? And it really depends. And then we'll get to this next slide. It depends on the level of engagement and kind of interest and ability that person seems to have to help you out. What I tend to recommend is touch base with people about once a month. But if they're a little bit less helpful, seem a little hesitant about that, you either can just thank them and let it go, or maybe you touch base with them like every other month to kind of keep them posted. But this is where once you've gotten your resume and your LinkedIn up to date, you can start to post things every week, give or take, in your activity feed to start to stay in touch with people a little bit more. Okay. Now, on this next slide, I want to talk about brand for a moment, because in order to make a career change and conduct an effective search, what we have found with our clients is that they may be good at like selling themselves effectively on their resume and maybe talking about their results or their strengths and those kinds of things. But one of the things we find people don't do as good of a job with is creating their brand. And what I mean by that, because I know everybody talks about this all day long, but what I mean by that is that right away, when someone looks at your resume or your LinkedIn profile, they know who you are and kind of what you're going for right away. So you've got in your summary statement elements of your strengths, your personality type, maybe even like your values and your experience in there, as well as a lot of really good results oriented statements in your experience section. So we actually tend to kind of look at our career model as well to help people remind them of certain elements of their brand that they either sometimes forget or not focusing on as much as they possibly could. And I'll say a little bit more about this kind of as we go. So we want you to have your resume and your LinkedIn, and if you need to create a cover letter, we want it to represent you and communicate your brand. And what I mean by that, for example, is at the top of my resume, I would have a heading where my name stands out, my contact information stands out. And right below that, I would be saying certified career coach, because that's the type of job I would be applying to. Now, if there are certain jobs that would require me, for example, to be applying to, to be conducting or leading workshops, I would also add on there, in addition to certified career coach, I would write down speaker and workshop leader, because I want the person reading my resume to know right away who I am. And that's part of branding yourself. And then underneath that job title that I would have on my resume, I would have a quick tagline. And it could be something about like hands-on coach providing tangible advice and suggestions through one-on-one coaching and workshops. That could just be an example of like a results-oriented statement. So by doing that, though, they're going to start to get a picture of, I'm the type of person that'll kind of get in the trenches with someone and give people, like, be very authentic and down to earth. And I might even have authentic as a keyword in my summary, because that's part of creating the brand. Okay. So that's just an example using me of how to be thinking about, it's not just I'm good at this and I can manage projects effectively to save a company money, etc. Those are important. But like, what's unique about you? Are you really good at this and tweaking things kind of in the moment? Or are you really good at aligning those projects with the business strategic plan? And so you're always like called upon to think kind of big picture with people. Those are the types of things that can help you or would be a part of creating your brand. Okay, let's take a look at this slide here a little bit more, and then we'll keep going. With your resume, you want to have enough white space. You want to make sure that on your resume and LinkedIn that you're including search engine optimized keywords so that you've got those in there that will help you get past the scanners. You want to mention marketable results each time in your experience section as much as possible with each bullet point. And we want you to have a summary at the top of your resume. This pretty much goes across like different industries. Okay. Then with your LinkedIn profile, your summary at the top, which is technically in your about section, I should say, we like for that to be a little bit more personal. So have 1 or 2 personal statements in there. You can use first person on LinkedIn, measurable results, professional photo. We want you to have a branded banner behind your headshot. And I think there's an example coming up. If not, I'll pull one up during Q&A. We like for you to get some recommendations. Those are third-party endorsements. And we like for people to put excerpts of those in their experience section. Make sure that you're using the right keywords, that you have turned on all of the settings or adjusted your settings properly so that you're open to being contacted by employers and recruiters, and anything else that you want to be public on your profile is public. Just usually it's been a long time when people are starting to get in job search mode, they forget what their settings are on LinkedIn. I know this is a lot. We'd be happy to help you, as well as Terrence mentioned, he's there to help as well. We do give a discount for TCU alum. So if you set up a consult to learn about coaching with me, please reference that and we'll give you that coupon code. It's the same email address where you can get the slides. It's admin@createyourcareerpath.com. Let's take a look at your elevator speech. And I'd love to launch, I believe this is our last poll for today. People tend to forget about this one too. Do you have a good elevator pitch? They get their resume and their LinkedIn in order, which is great, but they forget, oh, well, what am I going to say? And I don't want to trip over myself when I'm networking with people at an event or whatever it is. We all know what an elevator speech or pitch is. It needs to be short and sweet, and we want it to be memorable. You want to directly say in there, this is what I provide to my clients, my customers, or businesses that I work with. My elevator pitch is, we help people find jobs that want to make them jump out of bed in the morning to go to work. And it's memorable, it's catchy, and it kind of gives people a sense. Now, at the beginning of my elevator pitch, I will say, I am a certified career coach so that they know that's who I am. And then I say the rest of it. And remember, when we're working on this, people will always say, well, I can't fit everything in there. Remember, the conversation is going to continue. So you just want to have like the big picture highlight, and then know that most likely you're going to be able to continue to talk with that person at that event or in a meeting later on, and you can add the rest in there and have that be part of it too. So let's take a look at what we've got for elevator pitch, yes or no. And it looks like there's a handful of people that do. That's fantastic. Make sure that you're tailoring it to the audience and the people that you're networking with at the time. And for those of you who are saying, no, you're not alone, this is normal, like I said, let's just make sure that this is one of the action steps you take on to be working on, because it is important. Again, most people will be like, oh, yay, I'm good to go. And then they go to an event and they're like, oh, I didn't handle that as well as I would have liked to. Let's look at step number 4, and this is our last one. And please feel free to put in questions in the Q&A and in the chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. You need to write your transition plan. It's a good idea to set a schedule and some goals. Do I want to make a career change by Q2 of this year or the end of it, whatever. So give yourself a goal, put something out there, even if you have to change it or adjust it along the way. And give yourself a schedule for working on this. Is it one day a week for, an hour? Is it twice a week for half an hour each time, or 3 times a week? Based on how quickly you need to move forward, add time as needed. It's a great idea to stay really organized so that you're not recreating the wheel every time. This is why we suggest the Excel spreadsheet. Set up job alerts, create your spreadsheet so that you've got everything in one place and you can pop it open every week and you can see, this is what I need to do next based on what I did last week. 3 things technically. Update your cell phone voicemail. We want them to hear your voice, not the robot, and we want it to be perky and upbeat now. Or at least positive and upbeat, okay? Because I know perky may be a little bit more female there. We want you to create a job search email address and signature. So use your personal email address if it has your name in it and it's professional sounding. Change it or get a new one if you need to, if that would help you stay more organized. But we want you to have a signature line in there that's automatic, that goes out every time you send an email, that has all of your contact information and your LinkedIn contact, URL as well. And it's a really good idea to, you got to take care of yourself, to stay positive, etc., and to have some kind of accountability partner to hold you to your action steps. Career transition is tough. Too many people give up on it. When people come to us, they usually say, I've been thinking about this for a year or 3 years. A really long time. And we don't want you to procrastinate. So please get support in some way, shape, or form, whether it's us, a friend or family member, all of the above. That's going to help you stay on track. Okay. And we'll just a little bit more, and actually we've already talked about this, so we'll go right to Q&A. But having this kind of tracker, the only other thing actually that I will say about this is if you can set goals for yourself for every week of, for example, I want to connect with 5 new people on LinkedIn every week and conduct 1 informational interview every week, or whatever it is. If you have goals like that, you're going to be more likely to achieve them, and it's going to seem manageable and reasonable for you versus totally overwhelming. This is where you can keep track of your daily and weekly kind of action steps, but also put your goals in too, and it's going to help you enormously. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking, and if you would write down and put in the chat for us 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. They can be baby steps. They don't have to be huge. That would be great. We've got 2 possible action steps that you could consider. I need to conduct 1 informational interview, or I've already done a bunch of those. Let me go back to this ideal career model and make sure I'm on the right track. As a reminder, at the bottom right here is the email address if you'd like the slides, and for the free consult as well. And we've got a question that came in. Let me just move this over. Okay, got it. Update LinkedIn, work on elevator pitch, job sites. Okay, so let me answer this first question. So add behind your picture on LinkedIn a banner behind your headshot. So you've got your headshot on LinkedIn, and then when you don't, like, LinkedIn will give you just kind of that standard box that's behind your head. We want you to update that with a picture and put text and content over it that brands you and sells you. So that's what I mean by that. You'll see more and more people are doing that, and it's really, really helpful. Should you submit a cover letter every time on a job application, even if it's optional? If it's optional, I would. If they ask for it, I would. If they do not ask for it and it's not an option, do not submit it. Don't try to slide it in by adding it into your resume. Client asked us that the other day. We don't recommend that because it's almost like, this sounds stupid, but you're not following instructions. Like, don't submit something unless it's an option to do so or they ask you for it. Job sites or search sites that we recommend, we like LinkedIn for finding and seeing what job openings are out there. We also like glassdoor.com. But when you're looking at applying for the actual job, we recommend going to the company website. If it's listed on there, we recommend applying on the company website versus through one of those other job boards. If it's not, apply through the job board, and that's fine. Update LinkedIn, work on elevator pitch. Good. Action items. I like it. Work through career model, one-on-one, interview and practice. Oh yeah, practicing your elevator pitch is really important. Practice it with other people. Get feedback from them on how you sound and if it's good. And practice it in the mirror too, so that you make sure you're not making funny faces. Reviewing freelance work and seminars and developing a rough transition plan timeline. This is a good one. Remember, everyone, when you're setting your goals and your timeline, give yourself extra time. This always takes longer than we want. It's like home remodeling, right? It's always going to take longer than you think it will. And you'll get frustrated if you set a goal and you're like, well, it hasn't happened tomorrow. So just be patient with yourself. Another in the Q&A box, how important is it to have an employee or company referral when applying for a job at a company? If you can find one, it's a lot better. Now, if you don't have one and you can't identify one, it's not like you're not going to get the job, but it can be incredibly helpful for you if they can make an introduction to you, if they can let HR know you've applied, and they'll put your resume closer to the top of the pile. So absolutely try very hard to find a connection if you can find one, okay? Because it can help a lot. Some great action steps in the chat. Take a look at those, please. An example of branded banner. You know what? I think I said that and I didn't do it. I apologize. Thank you for reminding me. Let me see if I can pull this up here on the side, and I will try to, just give me a moment, because it's LinkedIn is a big, I don't know, it always slows my computer down because it's kind of a big site. And I will, as I'm pulling that up, I'll answer. So just journal to define values. Okay, good. Advice on how to make your work seem unique to others, especially if AI is getting into that field. So this is where you can ask other people like how you stand out from the crowd a little bit. And I would think about like what makes you different from your competition for your specific job. So are you especially good at this one piece of your job? And let me just, and I know that's kind of vague. Usually we have to help people with this with their specific situation. So that's where the coaching usually comes in. So my branded banner is here. Let me just, I think if I click on this, it'll go to the right thing. There are other ones that we've created for clients, and hopefully it's working. Sorry, just give me a moment. And let me keep answering these. Set weekly goals, suggestions for best ways to find part-time jobs, full-time only. Flexjobs.com is one website that has part-time roles, and remote.co is one of their partner websites. You can find those too. Otherwise, you may want to put like part-time into a job board and see what pops up. So this is the branded banner. This is one of the ones that, well, obviously I've created it for myself, but here, let me show you another one too. Tips or suggestions on changing careers when your current employer doesn't know you're looking elsewhere. This is where I'd be doing a lot of networking. And so that you're not like posting it online, so to speak, or rapidly changing all of your LinkedIn profile, and your employer might notice, where you're talking with people and working with recruiters as well. So that's one. Here's a branded banner example. Would you recommend trying to connect or speak with the hiring manager through LinkedIn? I would. Know that they may ignore you, and they may not say anything, but I would try to connect with them, and because it can help you stand out a little bit. So I would definitely do that, unless for some reason on the job board or on their profile it says do not connect to me about employment opportunities. You need to follow their instructions. If an application states resume, submit resume, CV, which would you recommend to submit? It depends on the job that you're applying for and what is going to be more relevant in that situation for what type of job it is. I've spent 8 years in a different industry. Recommend applying to a new field on a resume if you have transferable skills. So one of the things I would do, and then we'll need to start wrapping up here in just like a minute or two, because I need to hop off before the top of the hour, is you could break out your experience and your summary sections into your transferable skills. So you might say leadership accomplishments and have your list of leadership accomplishments under that. You might have like graphic design experience or whatever. So break it out under different headings, and that can help with those transferable skills moving into the new spot. How many networking emails should I send out a week? It's a really good question. It kind of depends a little bit on how quickly you need to get a new job. And I'm just going to go back to my slide here before we go. I would want to send out, if I was in heavy duty job searching mode, I would want to send like 5 to 10 a day, so that I could try to be connecting with people and just kind of see how that goes and make some adjustments along the way. So Terrence, is there anything that you would like to say, or Diana, before we hop off? And just as a quick reminder, if you want your question answered later on, you can use this email address. It's the same for the consult in the slides too.
Hallie, thank you so much. I'll just put some information about how alumni can connect with the Career Center, where to find resources. And so, yeah, I think that's all I have, Diana. Back to you.
Nothing from me. Hornfront Connect is basically a platform where alumni and students and faculty and staff can connect. So that would be a great place to look for jobs or mentors, or moving to a new area, and just typical advice. But yeah, you guys should check that out. Other than that, Hallie, thank you again for another wonderful webinar session. I apologize for the technology mishap there with the polls. But I know this will be very helpful for a lot of people that want to change careers. We will be sending out a follow-up email with a recording of today's session. And we appreciate your time. Thank you again, Hallie and Terrence. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Go Frogs.